This is Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and with me, Young Readers editor for Kirkus Reviews, Laura Simeon. Laura, it's always a pleasure.
It's great to be back.
And obviously, we're going to be talking about books for young readers, so tell us about them.
So this week I have 3 sports-related books, 2 young adult and 1 middle grade. I've got Medicine Wheels by Byron Graves, narrated by Meegwun Fairbrother. A Greater Goal, The Epic Battle for Equal Pay in Women's Soccer and Beyond by Elizabeth Rusch, read by Eva Kaminsky. And The Shark Prince by Malia, Maunakea, which is narrated by Noah Keawekane.
So let us begin with Medicine Wheels, which actually is a Heart Drum imprint. Heart Drum is an imprint of Harper Audio, and they focus a lot on I think almost exclusively on Indigenous literature.
Yes, and so it's headed by Cynthia Leitich Smith, who is such a force in the publishing world and specifically boosting Indigenous voices. And yes, and this is the story of an Ojibwe teen named Bryce who has a turbulent home life with his mom and goes to spend the summer with his grandparents, where he discovers the joys of skateboarding, just like his late father.
I thought it was a very, very interesting premise. I also love Cynthia Leitich Smith, and I found the book really compelling in the way that it drew me in. His father had been a skateboarder, and now he was getting into it too, and that just could have been a sports hook. But instead, I thought it really became something deeper. It really became a way for Bryce to connect with his father, his community, and finally himself.
Yes, and it made me think about how I'm not a super sporty person, but I feel like sports, it deals with all those bigger human emotions and themes, self-discovery, competition, it can be an avenue for exploring all sorts of universal topics, which I think is really evident here.
What did you think about Fairbrother as a narrator? He had to navigate everything from moments of real despair to the absolute excitement of skateboarding.
Yes, and I thought he did such a great job just shifting his cadence and delivery in English, and then also there are a lot of Anishinaabe words that's embedded in this Ojibwe community that, as far as I can tell, I think he pronounces everything very accurately and conveys all of that sense of place and community so deeply, which is rare for us to find, unfortunately, still in literature. And just there's these highs and lows, there are these bullies who are targeting Bryce. He has moments of deep despair. He's grappling with mental health. But then there are these really lighthearted moments with friends. There's all the humor and joy of being, a teenager at the skate park and his crush. And just there's a lot that's woven together so beautifully.
I agree. And I think Fairbrother did such a good job of weaving all that together. I wanted to ask you about the author's note about skateboarding as an Indigenous sport, because that really kind of can reframe the way we look at skateboarding. I had no idea that was the case. Did you?
No, it was all new to me. I don't know very much about skateboarding. Now I know more. But yeah, the author's note, Graves describes it as the punk rock child of surfboarding,
which I love.
Which, of course, is Polynesian. Yes, I thought, oh, what a beautiful description. And the minute I read that or heard that, I was like, wow, of course. You can see the parallel right there. And what was so lovely too, and this really came alive in the narration, was you could picture it in your head.
Oh, for sure.
All the tricks and, all the stunts and just, the pain of falling and just, there's so many moments. It was just so vividly realized.
Well, shall we hear a little bit? Do you have an excerpt and can you set it up?
Yes. So this is the part of the book where Bryce, he's staying in his late father's childhood room and finds his favorite skateboard, and he's eager to try it out. So they're at the hospital where his grandfather's being treated for cancer, and he goes out to the parking lot and starts skating.
This is an excerpt from Medicine Wheels by Byron Graves, narrated by Meegwun Fairbrother.
I remember the tricks Dad would do anytime, anywhere. Always had his board with him. He'd land a kickflip in the Walmart parking lot, ollie off a flight of stairs outside a museum, or do a wall ride in an alley. He'd grin every time he landed. His skateboard was part of his body, part of his spirit. I'd love to feel like that. About anything. I kick harder, enjoying the speed. I feel weightless. The breeze blows my hair around. I get lost in a good way. My worries are far away. I focus on not falling, not getting bruised or scraped. It feels nice. Until an ambulance blazes into the parking lot at full tilt, sirens blaring, blue and red emergency lights flashing. The paramedics bound out and bolt inside, pushing a gurney with someone who is covered in blood strapped to it. My phone vibrates with a text from Grandma. They're ready for us to see Grandpa.
First of all, I think he's a very deliberate narrator, which I can appreciate. And I was also struck by how much Fairbrother's narration sort of grounds Bryce in two different emotional worlds. Because early on, Bryce is feeling tense and guarded and really at loose ends. But once he's back with his grandparents, I thought Fairbrother relaxed his deliveries, so you can almost hear Bryce beginning to feel safe again.
Yes, that's a great observation, actually. I think that journey he's going through, where he loves his mother so deeply, but she struggles ever since his father died. You know, she's an artist, but she's been adrift. And so he's been adrift as well. And then you see how his grandparents are this anchor, and he's reunited with old friends. And Michaela, the girl he met in Ojibwe language immersion camp, who he, falls for, but then there's tension there. But it's just, yeah, that relief of being seen and accepted and loved, and then still, of course, longing for his mom and wanting that stability.
Of course. And I think all three of these books are really good books for a family to listen to on a road trip. I just want to put that out there.
I agree. Road trips, and also I saw this with my own students, kids who do sports, they spend a lot of time on the road, driving between
That's right.
games and, competition and practice. And they also often have siblings who do sports, and they spend a lot of time sitting and waiting, while their siblings are doing things. And audiobooks are perfect for those situations.
That is a very good point. So now we're moving to A Greater Goal, the epic battle for equal pay in women's soccer and beyond. It's by Elizabeth Rusch, and it's read by Eva Kaminsky. What a book this was.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It's a comprehensive, gripping account of professional women's soccer players' attempts to achieve equity in pay and treatment. And I just want to say, be careful if you have high blood pressure, because, oh my goodness, this book, it's so exciting how well they do, and it's so infuriating how poorly they were treated by US Soccer and FIFA.
It is such a compelling book, and she is a really compelling narrator.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed this immensely. I mean, obviously with irritation and frustration,
Yes.
but I was captivated by it.
And I was thinking how difficult it is. I have listened to nonfiction where I think, leaning into the drama, some narrators can become overly emphatic in a way that feels, I say, cheesy almost,
Yeah.
But then you can also have really dry delivery. And I thought that Kaminsky hits like just the right note. I felt like, we all have that really smart friend who knows a lot about a topic we don't know much about. And you just sit, over a meal, and they're telling you all these entertaining stories, and you're going, what? Oh my goodness. And it felt like that.
Yeah, she sounds engaged and invested without trying to manufacture any drama, because it's definitely in the text itself. She just lets the facts, and there are some astonishing facts, have their full impact.
Yeah, very much so. And it's so timely. We're just wrapped up the Men's World Cup, and then we've got the Women's World Cup in Brazil next year. So I think even though this book came out a few years ago, I think it's so relevant, and there will be very strong interest. And the author too makes so many good points about how, even though, relatively speaking, some of the prize money. So you might look at them and go, well, they are earning a lot of money compared to, say, someone working as a waitress or, a regular person. But still, these cases establish legal precedent for equity and pay. And that's partly why they're so important, apart from the fairness issues and relative to the male players.
And before we hear an excerpt, I just want to say how much I appreciated that the book assumes not everybody listening is a soccer expert.
Yes.
So it gives enough context to understand the stakes and also how the game flows, but it keeps the focus where it belongs, on the players, on the legal battle, and on the persistence it took to keep pushing for change. I was so moved by the players who were understanding this isn't just for us.
Mm-hmm.
This is for the people who are coming after us too.
Yes. Yeah. It was very heartening in the face of such terrible treatment to see advertisers, the men's soccer players, the women players across generations really uniting. That just felt so celebratory.
Yeah, I really, really liked hearing about the solidarity among the players. And it ended up for me being just as compelling as anything that happened in a match.
Very much so. And there is great match action for the people who love soccer. So it was a really great blend.
Yeah, I liked it very much. So let's hear some.
And so this portion, Kaminsky reads the 37-word Title IX section of this federal education bill that prohibits exclusion and discrimination on the basis of sex, and then describes how it was positioned and what the impact was.
This is A Greater Goal. It's by Elizabeth Rusch. It's read by Eva Kaminsky.
Though the words were simple, their creators knew they could be powerful. When the bill was being considered in Congress, Representative Edith Green of Oregon asked other representatives who supported the bill to be hush-hush about it. I don't want you to lobby, because if you lobby, people will ask questions about the bill, and they will find out what it would really do. Because what Title IX did, after its passage on June 23, 1973, was revolutionary. The law made it illegal for schools, colleges, and universities to offer unequal education to boys and girls, young men and women. That meant no more publicly funded law schools and medical schools that admitted only men. No more tracking girls into home economics and boys into science, shop, and math classes. And it meant that schools could no longer offer abundant sports teams, football, baseball, basketball, wrestling, track, tennis, and soccer, to boys with little for girls other than cheering on the sidelines.
I was around when Title IX was voted into law, and I wonder if people now who are young understand what a game changer it was.
I suspect not, because, what you grow up with is normal, and you sort of hear about, in the old days, things could be like this, but just the degree to which it affected so many areas of people's lives is
across the country,
just hard to comprehend.
Yeah. And really kind of across the political spectrum, because you could be the most government not involved in my life kind of person. But, when you're going and watching your daughter play soccer, that's sort of left at the, stadium gate.
Yes.
You just want to see your kid play.
I know. It's really, it shows, I think, how quickly social change can be accepted. I think it's such a powerful book, far beyond, just the topic of soccer. It's interwoven in all our lives in so many ways, all of these topics. Yeah.
And I'm both happy that a lot of people can't remember a time before. I'm unhappy because this is where this book is such a service, because it really shows what working in solidarity with other people can accomplish.
Yes, and how important it is not to take rights for granted.
Yeah, and to keep on keeping on. And then finally, The Shark Prince.
Now we're switching to middle grade, but again, I think all three books have a really broad audience. And this one, it's it's the latest from Malia, Maunakea, and Noah Keawekane narrates, and it's about 13-year-old Nohea, a Native Hawaiian boy who lives in Oahu with his human mom and grandmother, and they're trying to keep him from giving in to his dangerous other half as descendant of the Shark King, Kamohoali'i.
I'm just kind of crazy about this book. The narration, mythology, humor, coming of age story, it all seems to reinforce one another. The narrator nails Nohea's voice. I mean, he never leans into the monster side, and instead, 13-year-old who's trying to make sense of a really difficult situation.
It really is so relatable in so many ways. You think, what? This boy who might turn into a shark at any point. But there's something about the way he tells the story that it just feels completely, you don't question it. I was thinking this is a perfect book for Percy Jackson fans.
Oh, very nice.
Because you've got the kid who's struggling with something, and it's, so it feels very much like adolescence. When you think about when you go through adolescence and your body changes in sometimes scary and unpredictable ways. And here's Nohea, and he might grow a shark fin, and, sharp teeth might pop out at any moment. And he knows that there's this risk, his mom and grandmother, they're raising him vegetarian. They don't want to feed this lust for meat. They're homeschooling. They're really worried he might do something to harm another child, and they'll be banished from the community because he knows that his dad disappeared before he was born following a tragic accident, which we'll learn more about soon.
Yeah, we will, because I know that's part of the excerpt. Mm-hmm. I really like how grounded the book is in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Again, the mythology, language, and sense of place, not window dressing. They're woven into Nohea's everyday life, which makes the setting feel authentic. And so even the fantasy elements seem very authentic. I was convinced.
And I will say, so my mother is from Kauai, and I lived there in Oahu, where the book is set as a child. And there are a lot of books written from a sort of touristy perspective that are just superficial or have factual errors. And I think, what I love, what we're seeing here is, an author and a narrator who both are rooted in the culture. And so you do go beyond the surface and you do get that authenticity.
Shall we hear some?
Yes. So this is from the first chapter. Nohea's sitting on a surfboard in the ocean talking to his dad, and he's sort of struggling with his fate.
This is The Shark Prince by Malia, Maunakea, and it's read by Noah Keawekane.
Dad was an epic big wave surfer. There are articles online about him surfing in competitions all over the world when he was still in high school. The Global Surfing League had a competition here in our hometown, and it ended horribly when he turned into a shark. A real one. I found a grainy video from back in the day when I went down a rabbit hole trying to learn more about him once. He was a human on his surfboard, too far away to see clearly, but definitely human, dropping into a wave that he'd been waiting for. But then another guy dropped in on the wave too, right in front of my dad. My dad ate it. Total wipeout. Everyone on shore got on their feet, waiting for him to surface through the whitewash. And I watched this part of the video on repeat a million times. A massive shark with my dad's surfboard leash attached to the upper part of its tail came up and chomped down on the other surfer. Snatched him right off the board. The guy ended up dying and Dad disappeared.
I've said before, I think Noah does really an amazing job with this book. And I also love the way this book circles back to medicine wheels. Mm-hmm. We have a skateboard and a surfboard and two kids with absent fathers who are trying to connect to them through these sports. And they're both so grounded in family, community, and culture.
Very much so. And I also like that both stories, there's balance. Like in this one, there's so much just classic kind of middle school boy humor. It's just, and it lands so perfectly. And, the narration just, again, is able to shift so well between all the different moods and feelings and emotions.
And I love that his mother rescues animals.
Yes, the animal piece, of course,
Makes me feel very good.
appeal to so many young people.
Yes, including me. I
Yes.
never left that phase of my
No,
life.
same. I just wanted to comment on one more thing. I think audiobooks are so good for building vocabulary. Contrary to some parents' belief, audiobooks support vocabulary acquisition just as much as reading. And this book, it has a lot of advanced vocabulary. It's totally accessible. It's got some local Hawaiian words that may be unfamiliar. And it also has, some sort of slightly more advanced English vocabulary. And I think the narration speed, which is very deliberate, is just right, both, for the emotional weight of the story and for kids to figure things out in context that might be unfamiliar.
I agree. Laura, thank you so much. It really is a pleasure always to talk to you. And I'll talk to you next month.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Me too.
You've been listening to Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews. We drop on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we will just appear in your feed. And while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, host Megan LaBreeze brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. You can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then stop by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, Laura Simeon, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dow is the editor, with assistance from Alicia Langerman. Tom Beer is the executive producer, and the music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way. I'm your host, Jo Reed. Good listening.